okay, I'm done. And he put the laughing emojis. Right. Because Mauricio Sulaiman was going for Canelo Alvarez to beat Terrence Crawford. And that didn't happen. And so they didn't even deliver him his belt. And he's saying, they didn't deliver me my belt. And I'm supposed to be thankful. I'm supposed to jump up and down for joy because of what? I'm supposed to pay you because of what? Now, Mauricio Sulaiman responds with this again.
Unfortunate. The worst situation, the worst decision that the WBC could ever take is to withdraw recognition of a champion. And I am very sorry for Terrence's actions. His actions led to the WBC deciding something.
Let's go.
We did every single possible attempt to find a resolution and to avoid what eventually happened. But boxing champions have obligations, same as they have great benefits from being a WBC champion. And it has been a long process, which is very uncomfortable and disappointing. Yes, that is the situation. Sanction fees for 2 fights. For Madrimov, when Crawford was the WBC welterweight champion, he won the fight.
First of all, Madrimov fight was at junior middleweight. He said when he was the welterweight champion. It was at junior middleweight. 154. And it was for the WBA title. They decided to make him the WBC interim champion. And he petitioned for the WBO stance to be the mandatory for Sebastian Fundora. Not the WBC. They put their self in this conversation because they wanted to be a part of Terrence Crawford's journey after he beat Errol Spence. He beat Madrimov at the WBA title. They wanted to interject and made him the WBC interim champion. And he was petitioned. He had petitioned after he beat Errol Spence and the rematch wasn't happening to be the mandatory for the WBO and Tim Tszyu. And then Sebastian Fundora because Sebastian Fundora beat Tim Tszyu. The WBC belt was vacant. And Sebastian Fundora and Tim Tszyu fought for the vacant WBC title and Tim Tszyu's WBO title. So what is he talking about? Just like Andre Ward said and Floyd Mayweather said, you got to pay for interim titles. Make it make sense. Again, let me run that down real quick for y'all if you didn't understand. Terrence Crawford, after he beat Errol Spence, became undisputed. He was waiting for the instant rematch with Errol Spence. It didn't happen. He petitioned the World Boxing Organization, the WBO, to be the mandatory for Tim Tszyu's WBO title at 154. Tim Tszyu was allowed to have a voluntary defense. He was going to fight against Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman tore his bicep. The fight got canceled.
All right, here we go.
Okay? The middleweight undisputed champion was Jermell Charlo, who vacated all his belts when he moved up to fight Canelo Alvarez. With that said, Sebastian Fundora was supposed to fight Serhii Bohachuk for the WBC vacant belt. When Keith Thurman got hurt, Sebastian Fundora was elevated to the main event and fought against Tim Tszyu, okay, for Tim Tszyu's WBO title and the vacant WBC title. In that case, Terrence Crawford then decided to fight what was available, which was Israel Madrimov for the WBA title. The WBC wanted to be included. Sebastian Fundora beat Tim Tszyu, became the WBO champion. Terrence Crawford beat Israel Madrimov for the WBA title. They made him the WBC interim champion to be the mandatory for Tim Tszyu, Sebastian Fundora. We know the rest was history. They didn't strip Sebastian Fundora. They didn't order him to fight Terrence Crawford. So he's saying that Terrence Crawford didn't pay the fees for the Madrimov fight. Why would he pay fees for the Madrimov fight when he's not the WBC champion? So you wanted to get fees for Terrence Crawford fighting Israel Madrimov for the WBA title.
Where was this action at last
And
year?
get fees from Sebastian Fundora and Tim Tszyu. Make this make sense. And only one person had the belt, which was Fundora. So Fundora had to pay fees and Terrence Crawford had to pay fees? Make it make sense.
And his next move, he never paid the sanction fees for that fight. His next fight was Canelo Alvarez.
No.
He fought for the WBC title.
On the motherfucking go. And I'm back at y'all with another.
This works. Messing around too much. Stamina's a little not where I want it.
I could have called that too. Yeah.
Bitcoin is the best battery for your human capital. And in this video, I want to explain to you what exactly I mean by this. Let's get started. I'm going to go right into what human capital is. So human capital is the total value that you're expected to generate for the rest of your life. So what I mean by value is you're creating something, you're giving it to other people, you're selling it for, let's say, US dollars. The value of whatever you create is your human capital. As you improve your skills, you can create a lot more value. Your human capital is a result of you investing in yourself. If you invest in yourself, you'll have more human capital. If you don't invest in yourself, you won't have as much human capital because you will be able to create the same level of productivity as somebody who does invest in themselves. So, for example, if your whole life is catered to getting instant gratification, you have an unhealthy lifestyle, you never go to the gym, you have a limited amount of education, you don't go to school, you don't read, you don't do anything, you don't go on YouTube and try to find educational videos, you're constantly looking for entertainment, you're watching TV, you're watching movies, you're going out, you're drinking, that's perfectly fine. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that at all, but moderation is key, and you have no job experience, no career experience, no experience with working with a business to create some kind of value. On the other hand, if you invest in yourself, you can improve your education, you can go to school, you can go on YouTube, you can watch different kinds of educational videos where your hourly wage is directly impacted, and you can sell your services, your time, to other people who are willing to pay you for your time, your energy, your skills, your effort, whatever you've learned so far. If you exercise more, of course, your body will be stronger and you'll be able to offer more value to the marketplace. If you're not exercising, then there's a limit to what you can do. There's a limit to the value that you can create. You're not going to be as creative. You're not going to be as productive. You also have a sense of soft skills. So if you have experience with dealing with other people, your human capital increases. If you're charismatic, you can deal with more people, you can attract more people to your business. If you have leadership skills, you can bring in the best employees and so on. There's a lot of soft skills that you can work on. You can also join seminars. You can learn different types of skills that allow you to create more value for your customers, and they'll be willing to pay you for that value. You also want to be reading if you want to improve your human capital, if you want to invest. Because every time you read, you're probably going to learn something new. You're going to learn some different perspective. You're going to maybe solve a different problem that you hadn't thought of before. So how do you increase your human capital? This is specifically for, let's say, the job market. If you wanted to work a job, how do you get a better job? How do you get a higher paying job? First of all, if you improve your health, I think that there are people who are already just thinking that if you are healthier, you're probably going to be more productive. That's not always the case, of course, but I think that that health is very key to increasing your human capital. If you don't have health, you don't really have anything at all. You can also build your experience. You can work jobs that maybe you don't want to. You can do the stuff that people consider to be the dirty work, but that's probably going to give you the best experience. And you can improve your education. If you improve your education, you can, of course, find different problems that people have, and you can offer a solution for those problems. The factors that contribute to human capital, of course, are education. If you are more educated, you have more knowledge. This means you should be able to contribute more. If you have more experience, you can deal with more situations independently. Your judgment is what you're being paid for. As you get older, the amount of working years you have left decrease, so your human capital goes down. And when you improve your health, your life expectancy obviously increases. As your life expectancy increases, your age isn't as much of a factor, so your health is almost offsetting on your age. Now keep in mind that being employed isn't a requirement. You don't have to work a job. You can start your own business. You can create some value some way where you're solving problems for other people. But the point here is that you want to be productive. You want to help other people. You want to solve as many problems for other people as you possibly can. And then you find some way to store the value that you receive. I think one of the problems that a lot of people have is they spend their entire lives creating value, earning money, but they never spend any time learning about the battery they're storing their energy in. Now, if you think about what a battery is just a way for you to store energy to use in the future. Now, let's take a look at the example of a car battery. That car battery is sitting in your car. It stores energy, and whenever you want to start your car, it requires that battery to have energy. When you don't use your car for a while, when you don't start your car for a while, the battery leaks and energy is being taken out of the battery, even though you haven't used it. Money is just a battery for your energy, your time, your effort, your skills. You can exchange all of your skills, your time, your energy, your effort for money. But if that form of money has a leak, when you actually need it, it may not have the value that you need it to have. Here's a really great graphic showing you the purchasing power of the dollar. The dollar is being considered as, in a way, a battery, and you're trying to see how much of its energy, how much of the energy you put in is actually being kept by the dollar. So the purchasing power is how you measure the amount of energy that actually remains in your form of money. If you have a battery where you store your energy and it loses that energy very quickly, then of course it's not a very efficient battery. So what we see here is the purchasing power of $1, what you can buy with your $1. Your goal is to have as much purchasing power as possible, not as much money as possible. You can stack as many dollars as you want to, but at some point, those dollars won't buy anything. What you see here is the purchasing power of the US dollar from 1913 till 2020. It's not very obvious to most people, but the US dollar is a terrible battery. It's leaking constantly, and that leak is the reason why you can't buy the same amount of things that you could in the past. So what you're doing is taking your human capital, you're creating value for other people, you're solving problems for other people, you're putting it into this leaky battery that isn't actually doing what it's supposed to, and you end up with less purchasing power in the future. And the reason for this, of course, is that the government can borrow as much money as it wants to. The US government can borrow as many US dollars as it wants to, flooding the system with more US dollars, and that's partly what makes it so that the US dollar is losing purchasing power. The Federal Reserve also prints as many dollars as it wants to, and it keeps adding them to the economy, meaning that whatever value you store in your dollars is being diluted. Money dilution is the leak. The more dilution there is, the quicker your energy will leak from your battery of choice. Whoever chooses the best battery, of course, is going to have the most purchasing power in the future, or they're going to be able to store their purchasing power for the future. Anyone who uses the wrong battery, the least efficient battery, will see that their purchasing power is decreasing over time, and the purpose of their money isn't being fulfilled. So you can see here in 1913, $1 bought 30 Hershey's chocolate bars. Today, you can probably not even buy one whole chocolate bar with $1. Over time, the US dollar keeps leaking value, it keeps leaking energy, and you can see some of the reasons here. The Federal Reserve Act creates a central bank, the ability to manage the country's money supply. This is a small group of people who get to create more dollars whenever they want to, and of course they will, to enrich themselves. Gold is another battery. It's very efficient. It can be used to hold value for a very, very long time. But you can see here in 1933, the US President Roosevelt criminalized the possession of gold because they wanted to move you from that battery, gold, to their battery that they create. That's their product. They create the product, so they want you to use it. So what they did was they banned the alternative. They banned their competition. That's enough about the dollar. All you really know is that the purchasing power will keep decreasing forever. You'll be able to buy fewer and fewer things that you really, really want. And there's absolutely nothing you can do about it because somebody else is in total control of the US dollar. There are, of course, other batteries that we can use. We've started using real estate as a battery for our human capital. People buy houses, they expect their purchasing power to go up. They use housing as a savings account. But you have to remember, every time there's a new house built, your savings are being diluted. Every time more housing supply enters the market, your savings are being decreased in value and transferred to the people who create that new house. Again, that's dilution, just like the dollar. Every time there's more dollars created, the purchasing power of your dollars decrease because supply is being increased and demand is being fulfilled for dollars. Same thing applies to real estate. As more houses are built, the demand of current houses is being extracted and moved to those new houses because the people who want to buy houses are no longer bidding for the houses that exist. They can buy the new houses that are being created. I think that the price of a battery to store value in is probably the most important metric that you can use to see whether that battery actually works, whether your purchasing power is increasing or decreasing over time. But the issue is that we now have a corrupt system. The dollar is what everything is being valued in. So you see that over time, the price of a house keeps increasing in terms of dollars. It keeps increasing in terms of dollars. It'll increase forever. But when you price houses in another battery, housing is another battery that I told you about. The third battery that I want to introduce is Bitcoin. So now let's add Bitcoin to this chart. This seems like a really great chart, but if you add Bitcoin to it, returns of housing are nearly zero compared to the returns from Bitcoin. And keep in mind that this is a log chart. If we don't go log, you can see here, the returns from housing are pretty much irrelevant. They're not even there. If you're pricing whatever asset you buy as a battery in terms of US dollars, of course, it's going to be manipulated because the supply of the US dollar can be changed at any time. It'll look like your purchasing power is increasing, but in reality, it's not. So if you price your house in terms of Bitcoin, you can see this is what the price of a house looks like when it's priced in something like Bitcoin. And this is what shows you purchasing power. If you price a house in US dollars, you feel great because it means you can exchange your house for more US dollars going forward. If you price your house in Bitcoin, you'll see here that
Coach of the year right here, baby!
you're able to buy less and less Bitcoin over time, and that trend is never going to stop. You see here that at one point you could buy something like 1,000 Bitcoin for a house, then you could buy 100 Bitcoin for a house, then you could buy 10 Bitcoin for a house. Today we're getting closer and closer to only being able to buy 1 Bitcoin for your house. The exact same thing applies to the S&P 500, which is also another battery. People store their human capital in the S&P 500. They buy the S&P 500 because they expect the purchasing power of their savings to go up if they hold on to the S&P 500. So you can see here, 2010, the S&P 500 is at $1,000. Today, the S&P 500 is at $6,600. And over time, it'll keep rising. I'm not even saying that it won't rise, The only reason why it'll rise is because the US dollar is such a terrible battery. What we're doing here is we're valuing one battery in terms of another battery, and because the US dollar is such a terrible battery, the S&P 500 just looks like a really great one because it seems like it stores its value over time. But you have to remember that from all of the companies in the S&P 500, each one of them can issue more shares whenever they want to. They can dilute your holdings if they really want to. So what you see here is there's one asset that's being diluted, and it's being valued in another asset that can be diluted at an even faster pace. But if you value the S&P 500 in terms of Bitcoin, you can see that there's absolutely no competition. At one point, one share of the S&P 500 was worth 96 Bitcoin. Then it was worth 1.5 Bitcoin. Today, it's worth something like 0.06 Bitcoin. So your human capital is a way for you to create value, and then your battery is a way for you to store the value that you create. You can create whatever kind of value you want to. You can go and make a YouTube video. You can go start a new job. You can start a business. You do whatever you want to, as long as it's legal. Create as much value as you can. You have to convert your human capital into value, because if you don't, then it's just being wasted. You're going to die anyways. So you might as well create as much value as you possibly can using your human capital. The important thing, though, is making sure that the value that you create isn't being wasted. It isn't being stolen by other people. Once you convert your human capital into real value and you sell it to other people, you want to make sure that you get to keep that value. If you don't get to keep the value, then there's no point in creating the value in the first place. So instead of putting all of your energy into creating value, also put some energy into storing your value. Because if you don't store your value properly, it's going to be stolen from you. And by the time you need to use it, you have savings. By the time you need to use them, they're not going to be worth anything. And I want to go through an example quickly. Let's say, for example, you saved $100 in your bank account every single month, and the interest rate that you received on those $100 is 0.01%. That's probably about accurate for most banks today. Let's say your monthly expenses are $5,000 a month, and they're increasing at 5% per year. So your cost of living is rising much, much faster than the return that you're getting on your savings. And we're going to change the frequency to monthly. So what you're doing here is you're saving $100 per month in your bank account, and you're getting a 0.0% return on that saving. So what you see here is over time, the amount of savings that you have will keep increasing. That's column D, the fiat balance of those savings. So that's the value in terms of dollars. It'll keep rising, but your expenses are going to rise much, much faster. So you can see here, if you save $100 a month in your bank account, in 2036, you'll have $13,000 saved up, but your expenses would have gone from $60,000 in 2025 to $102,000 in the same period of time. So in that 11-year period, your expenses would have risen by $42,000 per year, while your savings barely did anything. Even if you were to save $10,000 per month, at some point the value you save will be worthless because your expenses are growing faster than your savings. So at some point you'll have, let's say, $1.6 million saved. Your expenses are $118,000. But the important thing here is you want to look at your stack, so your savings divided by your expenses. In the beginning, your savings are growing, and they're growing, and they're growing, but they peak at a certain level. So in 2046, you'll have 15 years of your expenses covered, and that's a simple calculation. If you just divide the fiat balance of your savings by your annual expenses, you'll have 15 years of your expenses covered. But keep in mind that your expenses are growing much, much faster than your savings. So when your expenses reach a certain level, they're growing much, much faster than your savings are growing. So you can see here, you're able to save $10,000.
Need a place for the night? Choose from 1,500 plus locations and get up to 15% off.
And your savings will keep increasing, but at some point, your expenses will far exceed the amount that you can save per year. So in 2094, I know most people aren't going to live until then. Of course, that's perfectly fine. But in 2094, your expenses have risen by $80,000 for the year. 100 years from now, your $60,000 annual expenses would be $7.89 million. And you're probably thinking it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to be living 100 years. Even if you live another 50 years, your expenses are going to be massive compared to what they are today, and all of your savings will basically do nothing to cover your expenses. By 2075, you only have 8.7 years of expenses saved for, and at some point, because you're going to be drawing down those savings to pay for your expenses, you're not going to have anything left. The reason why Bitcoin is the best battery for your human capital, for your savings, is that no human controls it. There's only ever going to be a finite amount, and nobody can change that finite supply. Humans are really greedy, so when they have control over money, they're going to dilute what you have as savings, and they're going to redistribute your savings to themselves. So the key takeaways here are, number one, improve your human capital, create as much value as you can for other people, sell that value into the marketplace and get as many dollars as you can, and then convert those dollars into another kind of battery. Some people may choose real estate, some people may choose stocks, but in my opinion, the best battery is Bitcoin. If you save your human capital in Bitcoin, you're going to keep your purchasing power for a very, very long time compared to every other. I think the people who save the value that they create in Bitcoin are probably going to be some of the happiest in the future. The people who, of course, save in real estate and stocks may do fine, but those people are going to have to work a lot harder for much longer in order to have enough energy saved to pay for their lifestyles at some point in the future. If you found value in this video and you want to learn more from me, you can watch this one here where I explain the quantum threat to Bitcoin.
Oh, did Larry Fink, BlackRock CEO, just expose?
Austin here, aka Forbidden Knowledge. So we're gonna have a great talk tonight. All right, it's gonna be a phenomenal talk, and I'm looking forward to this entire evening of information that's going to alter your future reality. So if you've been looking for a sign, this is it. You're in the right place at the right time. You know, a lot of people talk about wanting to be different in 2026. Every year we get the renewal of the year. If you really want to be different in 2026, if you want 2026 to be a massive year of change, you're going to have to learn some things about yourself. They don't want you thinking clearly. They don't want you to be emotionally stable. And they definitely don't want you to be aligned. They don't want you walking into 2026 being your most powerful version of yourself. That's something that they don't want. And if you can realize this and bring awareness to this, because the moment that you become intentionally powerful, the moment that your mind and your energy and your decisions fall into complete coherence, that's when you become uncontrollable. And this is what we're going to be moving into tonight. How do you become uncontrollable in a good way? We're going to talk about this tonight and a lot more. So make sure you hit the like button. Let me check out the live chat. I see the live chat's filling up. All right, great. Everyone's here. Make sure y'all please click that like button and make sure you share the video. Okay? Very important to click the like button, share the video. Let's get the algorithm going. Let everyone know that we're live right now. We're live. We're live across multiple platforms, and we're streaming all over the place. If you're on IG and I talk about something later on in this talk, there's a link in my bio. If you're on X, the link is in my bio for anything that I speak about today. If you're in anywhere else that has a live chat, I'll be dropping something in the chat. I have a special thing for you later on. So hang tight till the end of this podcast, okay? And I'm right now commanding that everyone is going to have a great week. Everyone's having a great week. And the fact that you're here right now, able to listen to my voice, means you are having an absolute fantastic week, all right? So we know that they don't want you to become uncontrollable. They don't want you walking into 2026 fully awake, aware, and alive. They want you to stop chasing. You need to stop panicking, stop reaching. All these things are going to keep you getting ready for what's next. It's time to start creating. This upcoming year is the year of creation. We are full swing into the age of Aquarius now. Full swing. And the financial matrix is designed to keep you out of your power. But bringing your awareness to this and understanding that the way that you're going to manifest abundance is from your imagination. Because a person who can control their inner world is going to become unstoppable in their outer world. Your imagination is in here. That's what they've locked away and threw away the key since you were a little tiny kid. Since you were a child. All right? When you're in the gestation process, you're inside the womb. Your mother is eating foods. Your mother is engaging in conversations. Your mother could be stressed. There could be situations where she could be extremely happy and pleased. There could be situations where there is calamity going around on the outside, and you're in the womb. You are already experiencing all of those frequencies and vibrations as an embryo. So the programming starts from the embryonic stage, and so does your imagination.
That's yours.
Matter of fact, when you're in the womb, all you have in the womb is your imagination. That's all you have. It's just you, yourself, and you. And the vibrations coming from the outside and the interconnectedness you have with your mother through the umbilical cord. But at the end of the day, all you have is your imagination. If you've ever gone into a sleep deprivation or a sound deprivation chamber, like a float tank or something like that, and they give you the light deprivation, sound deprivation, and then you're floating in this salt water that's so much salt, you just float right on top and you kind of sink and lock into place. And all of a sudden you feel like you're not even on Earth anymore. It's just you and your imagination. Now, as you're going through that gestation period, your imagination is growing and developing. When you come out of the womb, you still have it. That's why babies are laughing and looking and seeing things that we can't see or laugh at. We don't understand what they're looking at. Their imagination is still running. As they're growing and developing, they are still accessing that. But slowly but surely, parents start stealing the imagination. Shut up, sit down, don't move, pay attention. By the time they get to grade school, the teachers are stealing their imagination. Shut up, sit down, don't move, stop fidgeting. All of a sudden, little by little, the imagination, which was all the way up here, starts to just dwindle away, little by little. But it's still in there. We still have it. But that imagination has been suppressed. And now that it's been suppressed, we grow up our entire lives with that suppressed imagination, which is actually one of our greatest benefits. One of the most amazing things that we can utilize and tap into to get ourselves to the next level financially, spiritually, abundantly, and everything else. But it's the imagination that has been suppressed, that has been holding us back. It has kept us locked in this financial matrix because we believe, we meaning most people are believing, that in order to make money, you have to go get a job and punch a clock and do this menial task for 8 to 10 hours and then go home and then do it all again. The secret to really manifesting abundance is learning how to live within your passion. And when you can live within your passion and you exchange that passion energetically in the world, then money is a side effect. It's a whole different way of looking at generating wealth. That's a different way of looking at navigating this financial matrix. They want to keep you mentally enslaved by continuing to suppress